therapist Kristen Jacobson.
Hey everyone, I'm Kristen, the anxiety therapist, and today I want to talk a little bit about intrusive thoughts. This seems to really be kind of a buzzword right now, at least that's what I'm hearing from some of my clients. So just want to kind of provide an explanation of what these are and how to deal with them. So intrusive thoughts are essentially unwanted thoughts, right? They kind of pop into our head and they seem a little strange or odd or distressing, but ironically enough, they are just kind of part of the human experience. So everyone will likely experience intrusive thoughts at some point in their life. The catch is that it really depends on how we respond to these intrusive thoughts, and that's where the anxiety piece comes in. Because if we engage with these thoughts and ruminate about them and kind of allow them to take hold, then they just get exacerbated and our anxiety tends to skyrocket. So let me give you some examples. Years ago, I was working with a client who would continually get an intrusive thought about whenever he would go and see his 1-year-old niece, he would get this thought of throwing her off the balcony. And you might be like taken aback by that and think, oh my gosh, this guy's a sociopath, or he needs to be hospitalized or whatnot. And, in a different situation, that might be the case. But for him, it was so distressing and there was so much shame surrounding these intrusive thoughts that it was, he had no intention of ever harming his niece. He loved her dearly. And so it was really, really distressing to him for these thoughts to be popping into his mind. But once we were able to label them as intrusive thoughts and sort of allow him to recognize that this wasn't necessarily something he had control over, that just the fact that they popped into his head, it helps to kind of alleviate some of that shame. And then he can call it what it is, so he can recognize and label it as an intrusive thought and just sort of observe it without judgment and let it be on its way. So again, we want to make sure we're not engaging with the thought, but we're also not pushing it away, because a lot of times if we try to resist a thought, it just comes on even stronger. So for example, if I told you you cannot think about a pink elephant for the next 10 minutes, I guarantee it would be very hard for you to do that, right? Because as soon as we try to push a thought away, the thought just wants to come on even stronger. And that's what then kind of keeps us in this vicious cycle of anxiety, because we don't want these thoughts. They're very distressing. We try to push them away and then they just come on more strongly. And then we start to kind of ruminate about, why can't I get a hold on this? Why is this happening? What does this say about me? Am I a bad person? And we sort of go into this spiral. So that's one example. Another example is I have a client who is getting married soon, and she recently saw a pretty bad car accident on her way home from the beach. And so her intrusive thoughts have been surrounding car accidents. So she gets these intrusive thoughts about, oh my gosh, what if we get into a car accident on the way to the wedding? Or what if my fiance gets in a car accident prior to the wedding? And so these are more attached to something that's actually happened, something that was pretty distressing, right? Witnessing a pretty bad car accident is a distressing event. And so this has sort of led to intrusive thoughts that in this situation kind of we see there's like a catalyst for it, so we can kind of connect it to something, whereas in my previous example they just kind of seem to come out of nowhere. So with her, again, similar approach where we want to label the thought as being intrusive, kind of recognize that it's an irrational thought, also known as a cognitive distortion, right? Anytime we have a what if situation, that tends to be an irrational thought. And so we just want to observe it without judgment, know that it's an intrusive thought, and then be able to kind of let it go on its way. And so the key takeaway here is to acknowledge but not engage. And some other ways that are helpful to just kind of manage these intrusive thoughts is practicing mindfulness. So these are techniques that are going to help you stay grounded in the present moment, and it makes it easier to sort of let those intrusive thoughts pass through. So sometimes it's helpful to do a visualization, and you might think of like a stream with some leaves floating on it, and those leaves represent your thoughts, right? So anytime you have an intrusive thought, you can just imagine it as a leaf that's just kind of floating floating past. Or some people like to visualize clouds, right? Clouds are sort of constantly in motion. And if you think of our minds as the sky and the clouds as our thoughts, it helps to kind of create some distance there and externalize it a little bit. And we can envision the thoughts as clouds just kind of floating through. Lastly, you really want to limit reassurance seeking. So a lot of times when we have intrusive thoughts, we reach out to somebody else and we need them to reassure us or convince us that either it's not true or we're not a bad person or whatever the case may be. So for example, people with maybe intrusive thoughts about health concerns, maybe they have anxiety about getting cancer or something that, and again, I want to clarify that these are irrational thoughts, right? So someone might actually have concerns about getting cancer because there is some evidence to support that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about thoughts that really have no root in evidence or reality. So somebody with some health anxiety might have these intrusive thoughts and they might seek out reassurance from a doctor. And that is actually just kind of fanning the flames of the fire, because it's telling your brain that, hey, this is something that we actually need to seek reassurance about, or in order to put a stop to it. And then it sort of perpetuates this feedback loop, right? I have the intrusive thought, I'm feeling anxious, I seek reassurance, I feel better, and then we get caught in that cycle. So we really want to limit that reassurance seeking, because in doing so, again, we're not engaging with the thought. If we're seeking reassurance, we are engaging with that thought. We're saying, okay, thought, you might be true. You're causing me anxiety, so I need to seek reassurance from somebody else. So I hope this video was helpful. I would love to know about your own experiences with intrusive thoughts. If you have any other ways that you tend to manage them that's effective and that you might want to share with other people. So please leave a comment, or, if you have any questions, I'm here to help. And if you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Anxiety Therapist, and you'll get notified when I put out new videos every week. All right, I hope you all have a good one. Take care.